Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of my Out of the Park Baseball 22 series with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and we're here on the first day of July, as I mentioned in the last episode I should say, that we would begin with. And real quick before we jump into it, just want to tell everybody to like and subscribe. Definitely been loving the support I've been getting in this series, and definitely trying to get it out as much as possible. I'm trying to upload it pretty much every day, but it's at this point just not happening. But I'm still continuing to try to pretty much get it out every day. Just have been busy. But into the game here, not really much updates in the last month. We're still dead last in the division, dead last in the National League, not quite last in the entire MLB record-wise. And as for our performances, they've pretty much been the same throughout this month. Jacob Stallings has improved a bit offensively there, but pretty much everyone has been performing the same. The guys who are not hitting are continuing to not hit, and the guys who are hitting / are doing all right are pretty much continuing that same production, and pretty much the same with the pitching, as you can see here. But the first order of business in this episode is the International Amateur Free Agents. Now, if you remember from the last series that I did, and basically pretty much all of OOTP 21, the international amateur market was honestly pretty poor. Now, in previous games, I noticed that you could pretty much find a good, at least one or two good international free agents that you look at and you say, like, hey, like, these are some players I'd be interested in signing because they really could help my team. But in last year's game, there really weren't any. I think in my long-running Tigers series last year, we signed just like one or two international free agents in the entire series, which went several seasons long. But here, it actually looks like there is a guy that is available who is of some interest here. So Tony Ozuna is that guy, 16-year-old outfielder. With these ratings here, it looks like he can probably play some center field for us, at least in the early days of his career, with that 65 outfield range, which is, of course, the most important attribute for a player who is going to be playing center field, or really pretty much any premium defensive position, as having good range is important because it allows players to get to a lot of balls hit. And he's, from these ratings, a pretty decent player. I'm most intrigued by his high discipline rating and pretty decent home run power, so he can be a good on base and home run hitter for us, who's also pretty quick. Of course, with these ratings, I wouldn't really project him to be a star player, but a very useful player. And his OSA ratings, because you notice he has low scouting accuracy, or our scout has low scouting accuracy on him. But the OSA ratings are actually much higher on him and have an average scouting accuracy. And in this rating, his contact rating is actually very high. So if he was in the middle of pretty much what our scout thinks of him and what the OSA ratings think of him, that would be pretty good. He would be a very productive player then. But of course, once we get him into our system, we're going to get him scouted up. But I'm going to be going ahead and giving him the max offer here of the $5 million cap that you're allowed. So we're going to be go ahead and offering him. Of course, especially being a team with the Pirates, I'm probably going to be trying to take advantage of these international guys as much as possible. Of course, small market teams are part of the reason why this kind of cap was put in place anyway, because MLB didn't want all the big market teams constantly going over the previous limits to just pay top dollar for these international guys. But instead, now with the cap that's available, that you pretty much cannot go over, and it really lets small market teams get in play on these young amateurs, and we're definitely going to be taking advantage of that. Hopefully trying to sign a guy each year if there are players who I think are good. So that is how we're going to be beginning this episode. And the next thing that we're going to be getting into in the episode is the first year player draft, where you, of course, can see that we have the first overall pick. Of course, the Pirates earned this through lots of losing. So this is going to be a very important pick for our team. because especially this early, that making a really good pick here will really determine the course for the very early stage of this rebuild. Messing up the first draft pick in your rebuild is pretty big, because it definitely can delay your rebuild, whereas picking very well in your first draft can really give you that huge boost, either giving you future assets that you can trade away, and also just assets that you can use right away to build your team. Now, in real life, Kumar Rocker is the pretty much consensus number one pick. He's a very good pitcher out of Vanderbilt, but his ratings right here honestly kind of scare me. We have high accuracy on him, and he only has 3 pitches, and as of right now, his changeup really isn't even that fantastic, and his control also only has a max of 45. In the OSA ratings, it's honestly not even much higher. So, with this being such a big pick, not exactly sure what we're going to do here, but first of all, we're going to go ahead and see what our scouting director really recommends here, and he's telling us to pick Kumar Rocker. I don't know if that's just because he's the projected number 1 pick, which I'm sure he is, but also doesn't look like there's really much better options here. McLean is definitely, I prefer to have Rocker over him, and same with this catcher, Harry Ford. Yeah, honestly, it looks like Rocker is probably going to be who we have to go with here. Jack Leiter, I mean, he's very highly projected, but those ratings are definitely not very good. So after looking at those few guys, I feel like I'm definitely have to go with Rocker here, just because of the possible OSA potential. Even our head scout does have very good abilities, and has high accuracy on him. He just makes the most sense, even though he's the most expensive. So we're going to go ahead and select him and meet his demand. And then also getting to the second round here, there are a few pretty good guys here, and TJ White is available, and we're just going to go ahead and take him because he's pretty promising hitting ratings, an okay outfield defender, but of course he's going to be a corner guy anyway. Ooh, and also a switch hitter. Definitely like TJ White there a little bit. He's definitely an interesting guy. And then there's also a good amount of guys here are also kind of interesting and fairly highly rated. Definitely not that catcher, but honestly it's probably going to be Will Cook for us here. And yeah, it's definitely going to be Will Cook for us here. So we're going to go ahead and take him. And now after we've taken those few guys, of course I didn't really like anyone who's available then, but we definitely have a bunch of rounds still to go. Now, something I like to do to kind of get useful players kind of later in the draft, as we are now, is sort by individual potential ratings, like by batting potential, individual fielding potential, pitch potential, and guys who can field exceptionally well. And this is because finding guys who can do one thing exceptionally well pretty much gives them the best chance to make it at the major league level, especially pitching wise, because having a guy who just is unique and does something well, like throw like one really good pitch well, throws hard, has like really good stuff, etc. like that. Those guys I found out are more likely to succeed as players, and also guys like Joseph Califoot, I think it is here, who's listed as a pitcher, but as you can see here has pretty promising hitting ratings. I mean, I would probably have taken him over like the past 2 hitters that we've taken, and of course he's not a particularly great pitcher here, but again, those hitting ratings are pretty good. But I think the guy I'm going to go with here is Luke Leto. Now, if you're a long-time OOTP player, you probably recognize this name because in previous games he usually is a stud that you can draft at the top of the draft, but not in this year's game for some reason. And his ratings aren't really that incredible, and he's listed as a third baseman here, but I really do like his hitting ratings here, very high discipline, so we're going to go ahead and pick him here with this next pick. And then also here, another player I like here is Slate Alford, a huge power hitting third baseman / corner infielder, so we're going to go ahead and select him next. And now looking at some of the pitchers here that are available kind of by individual ratings, this Maddox Bruins guy looks pretty interesting. Probably not a starter because anyone who played OOTP knows the history with changeups not developing this game. But he does look pretty decent and definitely could be a good high-end reliever for us. And then also kind of looking here, not too many other people right there, so we're going to be looking for individual pitch potential then. This guy has an absolute crazy fastball. And see, this is another guy who is a hitter, and actually isn't too bad of a hitter, but also has really crazy pitch potential there. Throws pretty hard, so I think I'm going to go with Jackson Lynn here, actually. I was thinking about drafting in the previous rounds, but his apparent two-way potential definitely made me think about going with him there. And then the last kind of specialized rating that I'll talk about here is fielding ratings. And there are a couple guys here that are kind of interesting. There's not particularly anyone with fantastic infield range, but there are a few with pretty good outfield range here. And one of them is Xavier Bussie here, I believe. Not an absolute fantastic range, but a fast guy. Decent-ish fielding ratings. And also another thing that I forgot to mention earlier is personality. He looks to have a pretty good hard-working personality here, which also is a good thing to do at the end of drafts here. Guys who have good personality, tend to improve, whereas, if you have guys who have poor work ethic, that kind of thing, their potential is more likely to go down. But if you have guys who have good personality traits, they also can have their potential increase since they would work hard and improve. And also another quick thing is catcher ability. Catcher ability is, if you haven't played OOTP probably, or just don't know, catcher ability is probably the most important fielding rating in the game. Catcher ability helps your pitching staff and helps them produce better numbers. Is by far the most important catcher defensive rating. And, I really wouldn't recommend having a catcher with a catcher ability below like 60. The only reason why you really should have a catcher with a low ability rating is if they are an absolute stud at the plate and you just don't have anywhere else to put them, or you just don't have anybody better catcher ability wise in your organization. And also it's always good to have a bunch of these catcher ability guys in general, because even if they're not a fantastic catcher, you can just have them in your lower organization, and they'll help the pitchers in your lower systems too. Not only with their numbers, so better numbers with pitchers like that. Having a good catcher ability, giving them those better numbers can help those players improve their potential with a better performance. So also a little tip there for helping improving your pitchers in your minor league system. And we're going to go ahead and take this Pavloni guy who has a 65 ability right there. And with that, it's probably going to do us for the end of this first draft at least. I just can't really find too many people that I'm interested in. Actually, here's this guy right here, and we'll take him, and that'll actually do it, because I can't really find anyone else that I'm too interested here. But we have lots to move on to, including the All-Star break and the trade deadline, so we'll get right into it. Looking at the All-Star break here, just a few short days later here, we actually have two representatives for the All-Star break, which I did not expect at all, and they are honestly pretty surprising. But first, we're going to just quick look at the American League here. Some kind of interesting ones here. This Bruce Zimmerman guy is here. He's okay-ish, but his ratings are also bad, and he also is done for the year, which is weird. So that's kind of a weird one. Everything else here doesn't look too out of the ordinary, besides Christian Arroyo, who is somehow rated 60 grade in this game. I'm not quite sure how that happened. Pretty much nothing in the American League's too out of the ordinary here. Jorge Blanco, 65 grade. He has a good offensive shortstop. Wow, 65 infield range. Yeah, definitely don't know about that for Jorge Polanco. So, and Heimer Candelario's here. I guess he did have a good 2020 season. But whatever. But yeah, getting into our representatives here, we have two, Steven Brault and Chad Kuhl here. And you can just see right off the bat, it's really interesting because Steve Brault is the All-Star Game starter for the National League this year, apparently, which is pretty surprising to say the least. I was pretty much floored when I saw this. I mean, I guess he does have the lowest ERA out of all these players. He also only has 98 innings. That's kind of because he only has 3 games where he wasn't a starter. But yeah, you can even see like his ERA is even below 2. So I guess 202 is his starting ERA, I would assume. And then that's how many innings he's gotten from being a starting pitcher. But I mean, you just look at all the other guys here. I mean, you've got Kershaw, who's been ridiculous. I mean, he's got a whip of like .79. All these guys are striking out 10, 11, 9 guys per 9. Got really good whips for the most part. And Steven Brault's just here with with his 1.28 whip. I'm only striking out 7.5 guys per 9. All these guys even just approximating their seasons. I mean, the only other guy that's like, I guess is Zach Wheeler here, and Aaron Nola here are here with the same amount-ish of WAR as him. But I mean, still, All-Star Game starter Steve Brault. I'm not quite sure about that one. Don't know how this storyline would go down in real life, that's for sure. And he definitely is just getting ridiculously lucky with kind of all the balls that are getting hit for outside, assume, because I mean, his whip is pretty high here. I mean, it's 1.28. So, I mean, you'd have to assume from a kind of high whip like that pretty much every ball that's being hit in play that doesn't go down for a hit is like an out. So, I mean, he has to be getting just extremely lucky with the amount of balls in play that he has with 7.5. He has to just be getting extremely lucky with just getting a ton of outs on what I assume would be hard hit balls, Maybe I'm not giving him the benefit of the doubt. He could just be like the best ground ball pitcher in the game. He does have neutral tendencies, kind of interesting. So maybe it's not from that. We could actually see his ground out percentage here. If I could get these pitching stats. The ground out percentage, I mean, still 51%. So still not fantastic there. I mean, honestly, this is just kind of amazing. But yep, first time All-Star Steven Brault, and then as I mentioned, first time All-Star Chad Kuhl. Now he was even hurt for a little bit. He missed like the beginning of the year. Only started 9 games, so he hasn't even been a starter the entire time. But apparently he's been very good for us this year. ERA plus way up there. Now he is more of like a pitcher that you'd expect to be in the All-Star game than Brault. I mean, he strikes out a bit more guys. Pretty high walk rate there, which is kind of nuts. Again, his whip is not that high, but man, I don't know what it is with Pirates pitchers getting to the All-Star game right here. But 2 guys who definitely questionable All-Stars there getting in, and Steven Brault apparently being the All-Star game starter for the National League. So that is indeed very interesting. Because also I noticed there's an asterisk on Kershaw there too, so I don't know why both of these guys have that. I don't know if they're gonna pitch at the same time or something or whatever, but definitely a little weird. And then we got our prospect rosters here, who I'd much more expect us to have some guys in here, and we do. We've got Quinn Priester, who I think is our best rated prospect that's not in the majors. I know Hayes was probably in the preseason predictions prospect thing, even though he's definitely not gonna have prospect eligibility after this season. And yep, looks like that's about it for that. So then we're going to go ahead and look at the trade deadline here. Wow, Tyler Soderstrom, they're playing him at catcher. Definitely don't know about that. Final thing, of course, that we have to cover in this episode is the trade deadline. And the only player that we're going to be making a trade with at this deadline is Chad Kuhl. And that's basically because I couldn't really find really good deals that were actually beneficial for all of the other guys, like Adam Frazier, who I thought about trading away. I also played around with Steven Brault, since of course he's having a good year this year. And I also think I shopped around Kayla a bit. And I really just couldn't find any good deals for them. Or at least deals like that would really improve our team. Because unfortunately, some of those guys just aren't performing well. And I think that's probably tanking their value, along with that they don't really have much team control left. But I did find one here, Adbert Alize, who is a reliever right now for the Cubs, and who's just kind of been middling so-so replacement level reliever. Of course, his ratings are very good, and he's still a relatively young pitcher. In previous OOTPs, he was usually a pretty good young arm to get, because he could be pretty good. But again, his ratings are high, but his performance really hasn't been there. But what I'm really interested in him is in a starting role. And so, the Cubs, they're a contending team in our division, and I, think they're looking for more of a guy like Cool who can step in and be a good starter for them. Whereas Alizé, more projectable. He is and doesn't have as much experience, and so they want a guy down the stretch for them who can do things for them. And so that's why I think I'm going to go ahead and do this deal. I think it makes sense for both teams, but I definitely think it can help us. So we're going to go ahead and do this deal. So right after I said that I wasn't going to trade anyone else, I'm actually very quickly changed my mind. I'm actually decided to go ahead and trade Kayla. Basically just for the fact that he's only under contract through the end of this year, so we picked him up on waivers, and his team control years are over. So he's only under contract this year, so I looked once again to see if there's anything out there that was interesting, and there's this guy named Robert Broome, who's out there. He got a little bit of time with the Indians this year, just 2 games, 1 2/3 innings. He's kind of comparable to Kayla with potential-wise, 60 grade. He's over 45 overall grade right now. He definitely could play in the majors for us, and he will once we execute this trade. But just figured, this guy has a bunch of deep control left. So, why not just trade Kayla, since we literally won't have him back next season. So no point in keeping him around. So we're going to go ahead and execute the trade for Robert Broome. And then, actually, the last thing that I'm going to cover in this episode, just kind of a housekeeping thing. We're going to be taking Gregory Polanco out of the starting lineup, just because it doesn't make any sense, because he's not going to be in the team next year. He's awful. And we have Jake Bauers and Colin Moran, who both have been playing pretty well this season. And we don't have spots for both of them, so we're going to go ahead and put Bauers in right field, and Moran will take over the starting first base job. And both of them will be playing every day. So that's going to conclude this video. Hopefully I can get these videos out at a much quicker pace, because I definitely do enjoy making them, and it seems that people have really enjoyed watching them recently. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll be back in the next episode.